Well, hello everyone. Hopefully you've all joined. Hopefully you've joined and you're on mute for the moment. If you could put yourself on mute, if you're not already on mute, if you've just joined the meeting, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, we're going to do this meeting, well, as a meeting rather than a webinar. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go round and introduce everyone. So for those people who have just joined, if you can put yourselves on mute for the moment, please. So I'll just introduce the people who are going to be talking during this meeting, who are giving presentations, should I say, during this meeting. And then we'll introduce everybody else who's joined the meeting as well, including our wonderful Pulse Pioneers. Lovely to see you. So I'll start off with myself, and that's Tom Allen Stevens. I am Managing Director of Boffin, and I'm going to pass on to yourself, Skye.
I am also on mute. I am the community manager of Boffin. So you've all heard from me already asking for all the documents, and I will be the annoying one in the process, more than likely.
Not at all. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks. I'm Tom Wilkinson from ADAS. Some Pulse Pioneers might know me from the Pulse Yens. I'm at ADAS, we're leading work package 2 in the project, which is all about collecting arable farm data to support pulse production and also to check the environmental and economic benefits of increased pulse cropping frequency in rotations.
Recording in progress.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Right, sorry, Marcus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Marcus Bolton, also from ADAS. I manage the FarmPep platform, which is hosting the PulsePep knowledge hub.
Fantastic. And we'll go around the room introducing everyone else, if that's okay. And I'm actually I've joined twice within this because I'm also a Pulse Pioneer. I farm, my name's Tom Allen Stevens. I farm in Farringdon, Oxfordshire. It's an arable farm, 170 hectares. We've got about 30 hectares of spring beans in the ground. And I'm joining as a Pulse Pioneer because I want to find out better ways of getting more consistent results from pulses. And I'm going to pass, first of all, to Erin Matlock. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Erin.
Good morning. I'm the new research agronomist here with PGRO, so 3 days into this role. So yeah.
Fantastic. Pass on to Becky. I think everyone knows Becky.
Morning, nice to see everybody. Yeah, Becky Howard from PGRO. I'm the R&D manager and the project manager for the MCS project. So I do the sort of admin stuff, and we'll be working hopefully quite closely with the Pulse Pioneers to help them through the process, and also with those of you that are in Pulse Yen.
Great. And Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Paul Barnes, South Ormsby Estate up here on the Lincolnshire Wolds, farming just under 2,000 acres in an organic mixed farming system. Been growing pulses organically for 20 years. I don't think there's enough information about what we can produce in the organic world compared to a conventional world. So I'm being a past bean EN participant. So yeah, looking forward to what we can do and help Tom and everybody in the team learn from our experiences.
Great. Rob, you're next on my screen. Would you like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everybody. Rob Waterston, manager for the Welford Estate Partnership in Newbury, Berkshire. about 2,200 acres of combinable crops. A love-hate relationship with beans. Love them some years, loathe them other years, but see their benefits for soil health and sort of the wheat crop afterwards. So yeah, just keen to sort of try and be a better bean farmer.
Great, thank you very much. And we've got John Seed. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm farm 200 hectares in the Scottish Borders. We've grown beans for a long time. I'm also a free-range egg producer and have been feeding beans to my hens. So I don't feel there's enough information about the use of beans in feeding to monogastrics, and I feel that the holistic view of using manure to grow beans and then feeding them to hens is something that's not understood. I'm also in the steering group for the NCS project.
Great, thank you. And Diarmuid, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. Hang on, start video. I'm up in Dundee, up in Scotland. We're at 650 feet. We're an organic farm, mixed farm, just like Paul said, not as big as his. We have been growing beans for a long time with mixed results. In fact, everything that Paul says is I completely agree with. We've been growing peas for a few years, and like John said, for our organic layers. And the focus for NCS is not that we can we grow beans and peas, it's can we grow them more consistently? And for that, the focus is always on intercropping. Can I make the peas stand up, and can I bring wheat into the bean world and combine them successfully? You said you've got 30 hectares of spring beans already in the ground. That makes me envious. So the hope for this project is that we get a share of ideas and everybody wins. That's what I always hope for, everyone wins. And you can tell how bloody cold it is that I'm sitting in my office with my hat on and we ain't planting beans today.
Great. Well, by the way, just to qualify things there, I've got 30 hectares in, but we were supposed to get 60. I'm not going to get the other 30 in, if that makes you feel any better. Gavin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, good morning. I'm Gavin Robertson. I'm an agronomist with Agri. I'm working alongside John Seed at Wood End Farm, basically being as much of assistance as possible. So far, we have a few fields of winter beans drilled. They're drilled pretty late, but they've emerged well. And recently had our spring beans drilled. And they've yesterday they had about 30+ mil of rain on top of them. So challenging conditions, but yeah, they have been preempt, and yeah, should be fine.
Great. No, thank you very much for that. Well, we've got some presentations. I'm just going to share my screen. I can work out how to do it. Bear with me. Hopefully everyone can see that. Yeah, great, wonderful. Yeah, so this is the so the idea of this meeting is to just run through very briefly what is expected of a Pulse Pioneer, and also some of the monitoring as well. And we're going to give some brief presentations, about 5 to 10 minutes each. And then if we've got any questions or if we want to have a discussion, then hopefully there'll be time at the end to do that. As I think we've already established, you know, this is a really challenging year. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of you who have agreed to be Pulse Pioneers. I know it's not been easy to get a crop in the ground, and you know, A, get a crop in the ground, and B, have a crop in the ground that's worthy of a trial. So thank you very much for taking part. And the idea of today is very much to show you, I hope, that we're really going to, what we're here to do is to support you in your trial and make sure that you get as much out of it as I hope that we will. So we're just I'm gonna run through a brief introduction as to what's expected of a Pulse Pioneer. You know, most of this you should already know because I've spoken to most of you. Just sort of go over some of the things that we've already discussed, I guess. And also introduce very briefly some of the monitoring, some of the things behind the contract and so on about being a Pulse Pioneer. Then I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's going to talk about the Pulse Yen and the monitoring involved in that. Then on to Marcus, who's been looking after Pulse PEP and developing Pulse PEP, and he's going to talk about that. Sky is going to look at the discussion forum on the Pulse PEP and how to get involved, which is a very important part of this project. And then, as I say, we'll open it up for a discussion at the end. And I've spoken to all of you about this. The main aim of what we're trying to do with the Pulse Pioneers this year is to start up our rotational platform. And the idea of that is that within your bean crop, hopefully, there will be an area of non-beans, cereals or oilseed rape or whatever. This is a split, a tramline type design for a field. But some of you have got a field next door or close by that is going to be in the same, that's in a different crop, so you can have your comparison. But that crop will then be coming into the same crop rotationally in the following year, and you can see that. So what we want to do next year is do some monitoring in the cereal crop, presumably cereal crop that you'll have in the year afterwards, so that we can assess the difference that beans is making within the rotation. And hopefully we'll also want to monitor it in following years as well. So this project ends in 2027, and ideally we want to monitor those fields right up until then. That's going to be largely up to you and how that fits into your rotation. But certainly, if you could do it next year, that would be great. Here's my field. Everyone has been given a suggested trial layout that I've laid out, and it's not prescriptive, the trial layout. It was just an illustration so that we can see what your trial looks like. This one's mine, looks a bit like Minecraft, really. But we've had issues with this field. As you can see, there's still a corner of it that's in fallow. And for some reason, we've drilled the wheat in a different direction. There's no particular reason for that. The trial that we want to try within, that's the other aspect of this, that all of you, I think, are looking to try something within your bean field. And the trial that we're looking to do is we want to look at the Syngenta product Vixaran, and there's also Citadel. And I know that some of you are looking to trial that as well. So we want to do a tramline trial. The important thing about the tramline trial is that you have an area of treated and non-treated. Preferably, you replicate it so that you've got at least 2 tramlines of each. In this particular field, there aren't very many tramlines we actually managed to drill with beans. Hence why we've only got 1 tramline of each. The monitoring involved, and I've already run through this with you. I'll just briefly talk about it. First of all, soil mineral nitrogen sample, and I think some of you have already taken that. By the way, we did have a query. I think this was from Rob. If you don't manage to get if your soil, so the soil mineral nitrogen test, you go from 0 to 30 and then 30 to 60 when you're sampling. If you've only got 30 centimeters of soil or less than 30 centimeters, just go down until you hit rock, basically, and don't confuse the samples by pretending that one of them is a 30 to 60. If you just do 0 to 30, that's what's required. Then also carbon baseline. We're asking you to carbon baseline your businesses, and some of you have already done that. Now there are some workshops underway that Farm Carbon Toolkit are doing to help you understand how to carbon baseline your business. If you want details of those, then just email myself or Sky, and we can give you those details. Yield Enhancement Network. So this is the way we're going to be monitoring the trials. And I've talked to all of you about putting your trial area into a different yen entry to your non-trial area. So, for example, I'm going to be putting the Vixaran, my Vixaran area, into one pulse yen, and then the rest of the bean crop into another pulse yen, and then there'll be a third cereal yen that I'm going to put the non-bean crop into. But I'll leave Tom to talk in more detail about the yen. And then finally, yield. If you can measure your yield of your bean crop, and preferably, as well as accurately as possible, over a weighbridge is ideal. Combine yield monitor, great. And one thing to add, and I have mentioned this, I hope, to all of you, is that we do have, if you're interested, we've got a limited number of climate field view packages available, worth £930, that help you monitor the yield. So anyone interested in that, please let Sky or myself know. So you get a year's free subscription and you get the Field View Drive, but we can give you more details about that. But we do need your yield, and we will, Sky will be bugging you for your yield. Do please, and as I say, try and give figures as accurately as possible for the yield from your field. I'm just going to briefly talk about the three roles of the Pulse Pioneers. Hopefully this is no surprise to you. We see that there are three roles. So the trial host, the person who actually owns the crop and manages it on a day-to-day basis. The important thing is that you commit to keeping that trial, not destroying it. If there's any problems with it, just let us know. We know the weather can have issues with it, but don't suddenly plough up the field without telling us, please. That's the main thing. Trial monitor, those people who are actually monitoring the trial, which is often the same person as the trial host. You're committing to doing all of the monitoring that we've asked you to do, take samples and so on and so forth, and record them as well. Project ambassador, and this is a really important role. And again, I hope this is no surprise to you, but one aspect about this is sharing the information that you glean from the trial and about pulses in general. And we want to give you as many opportunities as possible to do that. As a project, as a Pulse Pioneer, you have to pick up a certain number of project ambassador points. And we're trying to give you as many opportunities as possible to glean those points. Those are the opportunities where you can share your information, you can discuss your trial with others, you can ask questions, you can get experience from others and so on, share your experiences and so on. It's a really, really important part of the job, and we believe it's one of the crucial ways in which we're going to get better, more consistent results from pulses, because the knowledge, it's the knowledge that you have is what's going to help increase consistency and performance from pulses. And the important thing about what we're doing within these BOFIN trials is that you get paid for this. So I'm just going to flag up a few diary dates following on from this that we've got coming up. And there are 6 points available for everyone who turns up to these events. So we've got, some of you may know the Green Farm Collective, and there's an event coming up on the 22nd of May where we're going to be there. Our haven of inspiration that some of you may have come across last summer will be coming out again this summer. And look out for that. It's quite distinctive. Come and find us. Come and find out what's going on. Get the discussion going. As I say, we're going to be at the Green Farm Collective event. And then also at the Cereals event, what we're hoping to do at Cereals, and we'll be giving more details about this, is to have some sort of workshop running through the day at Cereals, so that we can we can get a good idea of what trials to do next year. Also, get some experiences from yourselves of how you're getting on with your trials this year as well. So look out for further details about this, but just literally bringing together plans, and perhaps we can discuss about what the best way to do this will be later on this morning. And Groundswell as well. We'll be at Groundswell. So do come along and find us. We'll be hopefully sort of laying on some food at all of these events as well. So that will hopefully persuade you to come along to those. Just a couple of words. So this is not about policing what you're doing. So that, yes, there is payment available. It's taxpayers' money. We have to make sure that it's being spent properly. But you know, the aim here is to get good on-farm trials, and we're really here to support you. If you've got any worries about how your trial is going, just get in touch with Skye or myself or my colleague Laura. Apologies, Laura, I never allowed you to introduce yourself.
Sorry.
So just to introduce Laura, she's project manager with Boffin, and she's also here to help. Now, one of the things about R&D on farm is that we understand that it's not as much of a priority as your day-to-day business runnings. So, which is why we're here to support. If you've got any problems with your trial, then just get in touch and we can talk it through. And as I say, hopefully we've got plenty of opportunities to earn points as well. Just a quick word about data. And you should have received some data principles. It will be in your contract terms that we sent through when you were initially interested. And I'll send through another copy of these. It's a one-sider on data principles and how we're going to treat your data. But basically, just to give an overview here, you know, we'll obviously respect your privacy in terms of GDPR, but we do want you to share your information among the project partners. An important aspect that we've been asked is, are we going to share the details of the farmers within the Pulse Pioneers? And we would like to do that so that you can get in touch with each other. And that's one thing that we're going to change. At the moment, you haven't given your permission to share your details just with other Pulse partners, and you've given your permission to share the details of the project partners, but not with other Pulse Pioneers. So we're going to change that so that other Pulse Pioneers can see who you are and get in touch with you. If you don't want that to happen, or you don't want that your details to be shared with other project partners, you should get in touch with us. Just other things about the data. So the data will be shared, and this will also include your historical data that we'll ask you for. It'll be shared among the project partners, but no further. And with aggregated data, you won't be able to be traced back to the farm. So we will be giving data as the project goes through, that glean from yourselves, that will give an idea of where pulse crops in the UK are going, but that won't be able to be traced back to yourself. And we'll always aim with the data. We respect that you own the data, that you have complete rights over it, but you have agreed to share it with us free of use. But we'll always be using it for your benefit, as well as for the benefit of farmers as a whole, I hope. And just a quick word about confidentiality. As I said, it's really, really important that you share the information within this. Those of you who have been involved in projects before, R&D projects, some of you may have signed NDAs and things like that. There's nothing about that in what we're doing here. So now we have, as project partners, and you can see all the project partners at the bottom of the screen there, we signed a collaboration agreement, and within that, you know, we respect confidentiality between partners and so on. One thing I would say is that if you are told by one of the project partners something that you know to be confidential, then you should keep it to yourself. Don't ring up Farmers Weekly and tell everyone all about it. But the obligation is on the project partner to, if they've got burning secrets, they shouldn't share them with you. So anything that you hear about within the project, you should feel that you're free and easy to share it, and we encourage you to share it very much so. That's a really, really important part of your role. So only if you hear something that you know to be confidential, you should keep it to yourself. That's the and just a quick word on payment. As you should be aware, you're all receiving 2,500 for the trial. You should have already received the first payment of that, 50% payment. most of you, I think, have received a bill for the membership fee. So this is paid for by Innovate. It's a DEFRA funded project. And the terms are that that they expect to see farmers putting some element of their own financial involvement into it. So this is why you're asked to give to pay a membership fee towards it. That's the way that we've agreed with Innovate that we can get around that bit. And as I said, the intention, we've had questions about this. The intention is that we will be appointing Pulse Pioneers. There are only 10 of you this year, but we are increasing each year. The aim is to get up to 40 by the end of the project. And the intention is, I hope, that we'll keep the same 10, new 10 who have joined this year. I don't think we've quite got up to our 10, unfortunately, mainly because of the weather. That there are some people who are going to commit but just haven't committed because they haven't got a crop in the ground. But the intention is that we're going to have it at the same level each year, and that we will certainly be welcoming you back in each year of the project. And also, just a quick note about the Pulse Pioneer points. They are backdated. So they're backdated right back to the start of the project. Well, when we launched it, which was 15th of June last year. So if you attended any of the NCS events, you've already earned points. But if you're ever wondering, just how many points you've got or whether something qualifies for points, if you just drop a note to Sky or myself, we'll let you know. And I think that's just about it from me. I was just going to flash up the activities chart. I keep talking about the points. You do have this in the information that we've sent you. It's in your contract. But this is just to reiterate what points are available for various activities. What I'd say is engagement on the Pulse PEP, which Sky will be talking about in a bit. That's where you can potentially earn the most points. So you get a point for each contribution that you make on there. It doesn't take long to put up lots of contributions, and that's what we're looking for. So fantastic. That's enough from me. I'm going to pass over to Tom and stop sharing my screen. I think what we'll do, if it's okay with everyone, is we'll keep questions to the end. But if you do have questions, then please do wait until the end and ask them. Tom, do you want to take over then?
Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody can see this slide. Looks very similar to the one Tom was sharing earlier. Yeah, that's a great introduction, and it covers a few of the points in this slide set as well. So I'll just skip over the slides where Tom's already done a really good job of highlighting things. So the aim of this presentation today is to, for those Pulse Pioneers who haven't been involved in the yield enhancement networks, explain what they are. Looking through the list, I can see a few familiar names, which is great for those people who've been involved in the YENs before. Hopefully there is something to highlight that that is still of use. And one thing that I'd like to do today is cover how we're going to use the data collected towards the aims of the project, because it's a great effort that everybody's putting in. So it's nice to know exactly how your efforts will be used towards advancing the knowledge of the project and growing pulses in general. And then I'll go through kind of the bits and pieces of being involved in the YEN. So discuss how YEN registration will work for Pulse Pioneers, and some tips for data submission, site visits and sampling. So the monitoring that Tom was talking about, and a bit about monitoring yield as well. Because of course, that's an important aspect of these trials. So what are the YENs? The Yield Enhancement Networks are they're cross-industry initiatives. They've got lots of different commercial sponsors, and the aim of them is to build out understanding what limits yield. And more recently, we're starting to focus on other crop metrics such as quality and greenhouse gas emissions as well. The Pulse Yield Enhancement Network, so the PYEN and the BEAN-YEN, are a collaboration between ADAS and PGRO. So we work very closely together to deliver those, and they collect many different crop metrics between fields and farms to understand the variation between them and what the relationships are between crop development, key, agronomy decision making, and the final performance of the crops. So for those who haven't been involved before, when a YEN entry is completed, you get a benchmarking report, and the aim of this is to highlight where a particular crop's strengths and weaknesses are within the season, what different agronomy choices have been made compared to, say, the norm. You can see things like how the crop developed, whether that was early or late, or if its nutrition was particularly low or high. And the idea is to give people a resource that they can reflect back on to see how their crop performs, what might have affected that season, and what changes they might like to make, or what decisions they would like to continue with in the future. So that happens on an individual level, and you might have individual growers or grower groups having benchmarking reports that are discussed together, and we have a conference each year that aims to kind of bring thinking together. And then another thing we do is we take the data, so the aggregated type of data that Tom mentioned before, which is anonymous, and combine it together to understand crop fundamentals. So, for example, with the bean yield enhancement network, we looked at what associated with high crop yields in 2021, and some of that information went into the BASF Bean Growth Guide that was written in collaboration with ADAS and PGRO. And we've recently released a summary of the PEN data analysis and what associates with yields and quality, and that's available on the Pulse PEP at the moment. And you might have seen a summary of that in the recent PGRO Pulse magazine as well. So how do the YEN support the Pulse Pioneer aims? So Tom's done a really great job of introducing what the Pulse Pioneers are all about. So I won't dwell on this too much. But yeah, just as a quick reminder, generally we have this rotational platform where people might be splitting fields or having paired fields, and we're trying to monitor the effect of the previous crop on the following crop. There's not a lot of information about the effects of pulses on crops after the subsequent following crop, so 2 years down the line. So if we can get information on that, that would be really novel for the project. And the YENs are going to be combined with information from SMN, Soil Health Scorecard, and Farm Carbon Toolkit analysis where possible. And then there's also this looking at treatment effects and how we can get the best pulse crops as well within fields. So how are we going to analyze this data? So the first thing we'll do is, well, one aspect of it is looking at differences between the individual fields and within farms. So we'll be able to collect that data and see on an individual farm level, what the effect of different previous crops were. We'll have more statistical power when we come to combine the information together, which is why we have this standardized rotational platform that we've kind of come up with. So yeah, once we start combining this information together across different farms, we can then start to cross-site analyses to look at different pre-crop effects using each rotational platform as a paired replicate. And then with that information from the YEN, so the YEN will collect information on crop inputs, so ag chem inputs, also site information, weather, sample analysis, so biomass and crop nutrition, so we can work out things like above ground crop nitrogen content, quality, and yield. If we combine that with information from some of the other project partners as well, like Farm Carbon Toolkit, and we provide that data to the James Hutton Institute for their life cycle assessment analysis, we can really start to build up a good idea of lots of different things. So the effect of different previous crops and crop yield, following crop nitrogen content, crop inputs, but also greenhouse gas emissions, soil health, and potentially things like field nitrogen balance as well. So I really hope to build on our understanding of what pulses do in the rotation by combining lots of people's information together. And then, of course, the really important aspect is supporting maximising of crop production. It might not be crop production, total yield, which is the final aim. It can be things like crop resilience as well, but really just understanding how to grow the best pulse crops for people on farm. And so the YENs, as Tom mentioned, will help monitor the effects of different treatments and also collect data on the site and season to provide context for those thinking about those treatment differences as well. And of course, as we collect data as well, it will hopefully get aggregated into the YEN database so we can continue looking at these associations with quality and yield and things like that. So hopefully that gives an overview of how we hope to use all the hard work that you do. And like Tom mentioned, I just want to reiterate thanks to people who have, put different crops in the ground in what is a difficult season. So thanks for that. For the next part of the presentation, I'm just going to go through the nuts and bolts of how you actually register your YEN. So to register a Pulse Pioneer entry, then all you have to do is go to one of the Pulse YEN joining pages. So on the YEN website, you go to join being YEN or join PYEN, depending on what your crop type is. And then you'll have a registration form come up, and all you have to do is select a Pulse Pioneer from the list. It'll ask for sponsor contact details. You can use, I assume, anyone from Boffin. I've put Sky, but maybe Laura would be better, or Tom. But just if you enter their name in that box, then they'll receive information about your entry as well. One thing to highlight is you only need to register once. So as Tom mentioned, there's, for a single field or a single Pulse Pioneer year, you might have different crop YEN entries. We don't want to confuse things between linking those together. So all you have to do is register once for your Pulse crop, and then ADAS will get in touch with you to get the details of your other crop YEN entries, and we'll set them up for you so you don't have to keep filling in the registration page. So once you've registered, then you'll receive a welcome pack. So this is really just a big, it comes in the post. It's a big package that's got all the sampling kits for that given season. A welcome pack will arrive for each entry, and you'll get a slightly different welcome pack for a serial entry compared to what you will do for a Pulse YEN Pulse entry. All the welcome packs come with prepaid post office return labels. So when it comes to sending back samples, it should be a relatively simple process of taking the sample, putting it in the right bag, putting the right return label on it if it's not already printed on that bag, and then taking it to the post office. The welcome pack will also contain a guidance booklet, and that's got more in-depth information about how to do some of the observations. And one thing to note is that for the Pulse Pioneers, soil nutrient analysis is going to be carried out by Hillcourt Farm, and that's to do with the SMN sampling that Tom mentioned earlier. So the Pulse Pioneer welcome packs, they won't include a soil sampling kit from NRM like we usually do in the YEN, because that will be coming via Boffin from Hillcourt Farm. But if your entry is a P entry, then you will still receive a foot rot soil analysis kit that PGRO do to analyse foot rot risk in P fields. So you'll still get that for the P entries. And this is just to show what the welcome pack looks like. Essentially, you've got lots of different sample bags in there. It's got instructions and some prepaid return labels for sending samples throughout the season. So data submissions. So one thing that's going to be really important for helping to understand treatment effects and bringing data together is understanding the site and crop inputs for each Pulse Pioneer trial. So the Yen is a really good way to standardize this. So when the crop data submission system launches sometime this month, we'll send you over the details on how to log into your Yen portal account if you haven't already got one, and that'll allow you to submit data for each entry. If you're a bit worried, the data is required. It's a mix of site and agronomy input details with crop observation data. Most of the data that we require is the usual farm management stuff. So if you keep copies of, well, I'm sure everybody does keep copies of their farm management records, but that should have most of the information in it. And you can also send that over to ADAS for the Pulse Pioneers if you need any help in submitting information. The extra kind of bits are highlighted by a progress sheet that you'll get emailed to you. And this is really useful kind of table, which I encourage everybody to use, and it's used to keep track of any extra observations and activities throughout the season. So anything that's outside of kind of usual farm management record keeping is highlighted really in this progress sheet. So that's the main thing to look out for. And the way it works is that you've got different actions for your entry, and then you've got a space where you can write notes. So if you're asked to do a plant count, you can write it there, or you need to record the data full emergence, you can write it there. And it's got a tick list to make sure that you keep up with the different requirements. So what I've done for the rest of this presentation is just broken it down into the stuff that's outside normal farm management software record keeping, to highlight a bit of the methods on how you might measure these things. So the first thing is, well, it's broken down into different site visits, and it's not exactly the same between different Yens. So the pulse crops have slightly more site visits than the cereal Yens, and the reason for that is because there's generally less information known about pulses. There's been, and there's a smaller body of research, I suppose. So we thought it was important to collect kind of all this fundamental data where we can. So the first thing to do is to record the date of full emergence, and then also a plant count. The plant count's really important because this allows us to work out some of the other crop metrics later on in the season, like shoots per meter squared or pods per meter squared and things like that. So the plant count is a relatively important one to do. There's two different ways to do this. You can do it using a quadrat or a meter stick and simply go out and count the number of plants in a meter squared area, and then you can make notes in the progress sheet and then submit that into the portal when you've got time. Or the other way of doing it is taking 3 photos from above the crop, looking vertically down, and then if you put a piece of A4 paper in the frame of the picture, we can use that as a reference for sides to work out the plant count. So this is an example photo for a bean crop. The next site visits 2, 3, and 4, they're all relatively similar. It involves going to the field and recording the dates of different key growth stages. So we've got the date of nodulation, impulses, and then the date of growth stage 31 in cereal crops. And then we've got the date of first flower, impulses, and then date of flag leaf emerging in cereal crops. And then we've got recording the date of end flower impulses. And these crop development dates are really important for us to understand how pulse crops deal with different weather situations. So go back to those resilience questions. How can you make pulse crops more resilient? Understanding how pulse crops are affected by different conditions during the season is really useful information to know. Some of the information is preferable. So, you know, you can't always get out for every site visit. People, you know, it's a very, very busy job. So as Tom mentions, you know, it's understandable that, you know, not everything is possible all the time. But it would be great if we could get a date of first flower, because that's really useful information. And then the other thing is leaf tissue sampling. So this isn't required for the NCS project. It'd be great if we can get some leaf tissue samples and then just some information on that. So this is via Landcrop and involves, you know, taking the youngest mature leaf without the PTO from 5 to 20 points across that that treatment area. And there's some tips here. So sample Monday to Wednesday, so it doesn't get stuck in the post over the weekend, and avoid leaves showing pest disease or other damage. And then if you're sampling at the flowering time, please try to make sure that you take samples before any foliar nutrition sprays are applied. Then the next big thing is grab samples, and these are really important because we use these to estimate things like biomass, harvest index, straw and pod nutrition, and crop physiology. So when we're thinking about the amount of nitrogen residue in pulse crops, this is really important information to have. It's required for both pulse crops and cereal crops, but the methodology is pretty much the same. Several days before harvest, collect representative samples of the treatment area, and we want 25 plants ideally, and you just take them up from the ground, put them in these potato sacks, and take them to the post office, and they should come back through to ADAS, where we'll do lots of analysis on those samples to think about crop physiology and crop nutrition. There is a YouTube video available if anybody wants to watch that on how to take grab samples. It's for cereals, but again, the methodology is very similar for pulses. The main thing for the pulse crops is that it's important to take the whole above ground portion of the plant, because how the crop branches is quite important to understand. So we don't want the different stems of the crop to become separated when we're thinking about analysing those crops. So the final thing is monitoring yield. So one thing to note is that yield can be submitted through the Yen. Well, it is a requirement for the Yen, but the competition element is not required for Pulse Pioneers. So you don't have to worry about that. And the Pulse Yens, in fact, don't have a competition element. It's all about understanding the crops and trying to find out the best way to grow pulses. So the way you can do this is filling out the details of the yield submission form. So this will come in your welcome pack, and it asks for a few things. So if you're measuring yield via a weighbridge, then it'll ask for harvest area. There's different ways you can measure harvest area. If you've got a yield mapper or tractor sprayer mounted RTK, you can use that to work out your harvest area, or you could use farm management software, or if it's a relatively small area, you could even go out with a tape wheel. We also need the weight of the fresh seed from that area at harvest, so ideally weighed over a weighbridge. And then we need the average moisture content of that seed as well. So there's space to put that information in the yield form, and that will help us get an accurate yield for that treatment area. You can also submit yields and collect information by yield monitors, and it the main thing with that is just to make sure it's calibrated for that particular crop before it's harvested. So as Tom mentioned, yeah, monitoring yields really important, and doing it over a weighbridge is one way of doing it. If you are looking at different treatment effects, then you might want to look at it in more detail, perhaps. So the complexity of this can range from visual comparisons of maps to kind of the full type of agronomics analysis that's done at ADAS, but these aren't requirements for the Pulse Pioneers. People have access to different kit and people have different time constraints. So, just as long as it's a fair way to compare yield, it will be okay. If you don't, as Tom mentioned, there are different softwares available, and I've just added this to the presentation whilst Tom was speaking. So I hope Climate Field View is the correct software that Tom mentioned. And if your mapping isn't available, then NDVI can be really useful for looking at treatment differences. So datafarming.com is a really useful website. You can get free NDVI data on there, so that might help to see if there's any differences in treatments. If you wanted to have some more information on principles for harvesting trials, then there's a resource on Farm PEP, Guide to Farmers Crop Trials, and on page 10 there's some more information on how to, the best principles for harvesting trials to make sure you get the fairest treatment comparisons.
Tom, could we wind up shortly, please?
Yeah, of course, yep. So the final thing is the seed samples. This is really important because we analyse it for quality, nutrition and crop physiology. It's required for calculating above ground N content, and we essentially want samples taken from the trailer where possible, being safe, of course. And you'll need about 800 grams for all the samples, and then they'll get sent off for analysis at different labs. So take-home messages are soil analysis will arrive from Boffin. You only need to register once by selecting the Pulse Pioneer as a sponsorship option. The progress sheets are really useful, and more information and all the sample packs will come in the welcome packs. If there's any questions that you have, then you can get in touch at yen@adas.co.uk as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Tom. Now, I'm conscious that we're running out of time very swiftly, so my fault as much as Tom's, and we've still got Marcus and Sky to come. Now, I'm conscious that some of you will want to get away at 9:30, but what I'm going to suggest, if it's okay, is that we're going to go on till 10 o'clock. But for those people who need to disappear early, then we'll just have a brief interlude now. If you want, if you need to get away at 9:30, but you've got a burning question, do you want to raise it now? If you just either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and say I've got a question or whatever. Any questions before we carry on?
Yeah, I'm going to have to shoot, I'm afraid, fairly shortly. So, but no questions at this stage. But thank you very much.
Okay, well, we're recording this, Rob, so you can pick up the rest of it at your leisure, so to speak. So, yeah, Paul, you had a question.
Just a quick one, and obviously working with Thomas and Bean in the past and whatever, and I don't know what the thoughts are, Tom, and the wider Boffin teams. The WhatsApp group which Bean run, Thomas, was pretty handy. I don't know whether that's on the radar, Tom, with this PEP group, which is always handy. I know it's sharing information in between the group, and obviously those that are active on social media will share it as well. But it's a very handy tool within a little grower group system. Just a thought. So that was my thing.
As far as what WhatsApp is concerned, I mean, we're just about to hear from Marcus and Sky about Pulse PEP. We do want you to share that information on Pulse PEP. If there's stuff that we can certainly have a WhatsApp group. And if there's stuff that really you want to keep between yourselves, then that's on WhatsApp is great for that.
Yeah.
But we really want the Pulse PEP to be the place where those sorts of thoughts. My experience with this sort of thing on WhatsApp is that you get some really great comments and observations on WhatsApp, and they're really valuable, not just for the people within the WhatsApp group, but for farmers in general. And that's what we want on Pulse PEP. It's those discussions that will help develop knowledge in general about growing pulses. I don't know if anyone else has got any comments on
No, it was just very from up and down the country on the bean where we've been in before, from different agronomic impacts and different issues are going through from there. So it's a knowledge exchange system, and that's what this is all about. And I know it's within the group, but to be shared out and about, Tom. But yeah, I'll leave it to you and the top table. On the back of that, I'm going to have to shoot as well, because we're meant to have a day with the family, because I haven't had a chance yet, because I've been too busy. So I must shoot. Thank you very much. Pleased to see you all. Thank you.
It'll be on recording. Recording will be
brilliant.
Any other questions before we move on?
Can I just add something about the WhatsApp group? Because obviously that will be set up for Yen anyway. Perhaps as well, if there's stuff that comes through the WhatsApp group that growers are not able to share because they're just not near, or don't have time, is if all the growers on the Yen groups agree, then we can perhaps as the partners of the project and as the communications team share some of that information with PEP as well. I don't know whether that would work, would it, Tom?
I think that'd be. Oh, yeah.
We can do that, but we would far prefer those people who've made that.
I agree, but we know what it gets like sort of May and June, don't we? So
any other queries before we move on? If not, I'll hand over to Marcus to talk us through Pulse PEP.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'll just share my screen quickly. So this is the Farm PEP landing page, which hosts the Pulse PEP. And that's just at farmpep.net. In order to navigate through to the Pulse PEP Knowledge Hub, there's just a little button here that you can click. And on the Pulse PEP, we have lots of really useful resources already on the site. If you just click View Resources, you'll be able to find a selection ranging from case studies, trials, growth guides, and lots of other really interesting knowledge pieces. We also have a range of topics with short summaries, events, and you can also click through to the Farming Forum discussion board, which Skye will be discussing later. So it would be really great if Pulse Pioneers can upload their trials and share their trials with the Pulse PEP Knowledge Hub. So I'll just talk you through the process of doing that. So the first thing to do will be to create an account on Farm PEP, which is just this button here. And you just fill out your credentials here, confirm an email, and then your account will be set up. Once you've done that, you can click through to the Pulse PEP. And just click any of these pluses here on events or initiatives, and they all take you through to the same page. Once you get there, you'll have an upload page, and yours will look slightly different because I have an administration account, but you will have all the same fields here to fill out. So the first thing to do will be to put in the title of your trial, just something really quick that kind of explains what you're testing. And then you will move on to the intro, which is quite good to just put the aims of the trial and quick couple of points about what you're looking to achieve with it. Then you will want to upload an image. This will appear as the thumbnail for your resource. So it's quite useful to just make it sort of stand out on the website. Just try to make your image as square as possible. If you have a trial diagram, a bit like Tom's Minecraft looking one, then that can be great as a little image for your resource there. This page type area is really important to remember to click. For your trials, a resource page is the most appropriate. If you come to want to upload later things, then you can create events or initiatives. In the main text, it's just a bit more detailed explanation about what you'll be testing. And then later on, when you start to get some results and conclusions, you can edit the page and start to populate the main text a bit more with your results. If you wanted to upload some data from the trial that you have in an Excel document, for example, or anything else, you can also just add a file to your page here. Here, if you wanted to connect it to the related topics on the website, we have plenty of topics like pulse crops, peas and beans, and that would just mean that on the sort of framework of the site, it will be discoverable for people who are looking at various other topics on the site. Finally, it's really important that you click these two boxes that will tag your post to the NCS project and Pulse PEP platform. That will make sure that it appears in the programs on the website and associate it with the project. Then you just quickly press create page and become a member. And your page will appear like this. And if you wanted to edit it at a later date, you can just go in here, edit page and update it with any new information or results. You'll also be able to see how many people are viewing it and everything else. You will also be able to click through to the farming forum to discuss your trial. So if you're sort of having a look on the Pulse PEP and see somebody's trial and you want to talk about it with them, then you can go through to the farming forum discussion board and have a conversation there. So yeah, that's the whole sort of process of uploading. If you don't remember this, it's okay, because we will be sending through some guidance in the form of a PDF just to talk you through how to do that all. But it should all be pretty self-explanatory anyway. And yeah, I just hope that the Pulse PEP can be a really useful resource for you all and a place to share all the great trials you're doing. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that, Tom. And it's a really important part of this, that you do load up your trial diagram so that everyone can see it and everyone can learn from it. But as Marcus said, that if you've got any queries about it, then just come through to us and we'll give you some guidance. I'll pass straight over to Sky if you want to take over, Sky.
Yep, one moment. Perfect. I hope you can see that all okay. So my involvement at Boffin focuses on spreading awareness of the importance of knowledge exchange and community thinking. And as part of these projects, especially the NCS one, as discussed today, it's really an important part to ensure that the project partners, involved scientists, are sharing their knowledge and experience with the Pulse Pioneers. So we've set up a Boffin designated area with our project communities, which can be found in the Knowledge in Farming section. So when you go onto the farming forum, you'll come to a page that looks like this initially. And then if you scroll down until you reach an area that looks like this with our various community sections in it. So if you wanted to go into the Pulse PEP forum, you can just click on Pulse PEP here, and it will take you through to our discussion forum for the Pulse PEP. So within this, you'll be able to see a list of threads that exist. So a thread is essentially, it's a new topic of discussion. So you can see here we've got cropping pulses, top tips and queries. Pete Ionetta from the John Hutton Institute, has done the assessing cropped systems. So if you're going to be discussing your trial, for example, this would be a really good way of setting a new topic. So you can put your farm name and then the trial, for example. And then it would encourage people to get involved that way. So if you see a thread that is of interest to you, you can then click into that thread and start replying or receiving comments from project partners and scientists and and other Pulse pioneers as well. So this is just some examples of the threads that have already popped up within the Slug Circle, because we've already done a year of monitoring with them now. So as was pointed out earlier, if you wanted to discuss any issues that you were having or any problems that you're finding, this would be a really good place for you to do that. So you can see that some of our slug sleuths were asking about identification of slugs, discussing the beetles that they were finding. And then there's Repwell is one of our scientists of the project, so they can give some really in-depth answers to any questions that you do have. So it's a really quick way of getting involved and getting some really good insights into what questions you're asking. So on the farming forum, we do have a button called Pulse PEP Resources, which will go straight through to the Pulse PEP resource hub posted on the Farm PEP, which was just discussed by Marcus for you. So if you're worrying about what kind of things you should be posting on there, you could ask questions about the project itself, the trials or protocols. So if you have received your welcome packs, for example, and think anything's missing, if you're worried about the weather, if you're worried about any pests or anything like that, bring it to here and you can get some really quick answers. You could talk about more generic themes of conversation, the best farming practices, share your experiences. It's essentially just a place that you can give that advice and support to other farmers so that we can start to get that more consistent cropping. And that's it really. So if you do have any problems or difficulty accessing the farming forum, then please do get in touch by email or by phone. I'm more than happy to sit through with you and go through it. But you should have received your logins by now. So yeah, just get in touch if you struggle at all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Sky. Just to note, by the way, that the Farming Forum, a lot of you may have already used the Farming Forum, and there's an awful lot of dross on there, and discussions that really aren't relevant to our project. The important thing about the forums that we've set up is that only those people who are members of, with the Pulse PEP one, only those people who are members of Pulse PEP can actually contribute. So it's a safe place to share your views. If you put up something, then you're not going to get someone riling back at you who isn't a member of Pulse PEP. So anyone can see the posts that go up there. Everyone can see it. It's a very well-visited forum, but only you can contribute. That's the important thing. And also Sky is moderating it as well. So if she sees something that shouldn't be on there, then she can take steps to remove it, or even remove the person who's put it on there. And also, if she sees a comment that needs an answer, she can prod the person who would be best to answer it as well. So, by the way, apologies for running over, but we'll carry on with questions and discussions up until 10 o'clock if you like to. So if there's anyone who's got any questions, would you like to? Has anyone got anything, John?
And no, it's not a question. You gave dates when there's meetings. We have a parallel piece of work going on with Agri EPI, and we have an open day on the 15th of May that they've organised here that's looking specifically at it's looking at the holistic aspects of our farming business, including we've got the guys from Pollinaise who do bees and pollinators, and also Chirrup who do bird surveying. But they're also focusing on feeding protein and growing protein. So they're going to look at these trials. So I wondered if there would be a BOFIN presence at that potentially. It's in the morning of the 15th of May. It's the same day as the pig and poultry exhibition for, I don't know why, Agri EPI, I don't know about pigs and poultry. And my issue has always been that, and I take the point of intercropping that was raised, that the key things for us are protein per hectare and things like contents of methionine, and those detail aspects are things that we're going to talk about as well, and how you process beans. We've had a close working relationship with MacArthur's looking at dehulling beans. So we're having an open day on the 15th of May, and we're having another one with the Soil Association Exchange, because we work with them very closely too, again along the same themes. And I'll give you a date for that as well, just in case people want to go, and I'll put it on once I work out all of the initiatives and things that you've shown us just now that we can post things on, I'll put it up in there as well.
Yeah, what I'd say is I don't think Boffin's going to be able to make your event on the 15th of May because, as you point out, we're going to the Pig and Poultry Fair. But I think, subject to what Marcus and Sky have to say, you can stick your events up on your page on PulsePep, I think. Marcus, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only thing that would be different is rather than selecting a resource page, you would select an event. And yeah, you can post it onto the PulsePep and hopefully give it some more kind of exposure.
All right, no, I'll do that once. There's a lot of, I could spend a lot of time doing that, but I don't know if it would make my farming any better, but I'll do something.
It'll help other people to farm better, John, and farm as well as you do. That's the point. Sky, I don't know whether it's worth pointing out anything, to support your event, how you can do it on the forum.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to post it. You can put links on there and images. If you want to go through to anything, you can upload pictures and YouTube videos as well if that ever crops up for you. So it's quite like a standard format of upload. So you shouldn't struggle. But as I said, if you do, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Great. Any other questions or queries from anybody? Fantastic.
I'll just mention I've put in the chat the Farm Carbon Toolkit training sessions. So there's a Zoom link and the date and time in there as well.
Are those dates available on PulsePep, by the way? The dates of the workshops, are they have we put them on PulsePep?
We should put them on if they're not on there yet.
I don't think they are on there yet, but I'm happy to put them on. That's fine.
Great. Fantastic. It looks as though we haven't got any other questions, but if we any other questions, anybody want to raise a question? Oh, is that someone raising a question? No. Hang on, I'm just going to share my screen quickly. I've just got one more slide to bring up. Yeah, I was just going to say quickly the next steps. As you've already heard, do the soil sampling if you haven't done it already. Get set up for PulsePep, as Marcus explained. Register for the Pulse Yens and the Cereal Yen, as Tom went through. And then obviously, apply your treatments this spring, monitor them through the Yen. Then come on to the PulsePep and join the discussion. And we really, it's what we're hoping with the PulsePep is that it will build up into some really valuable information and advice and knowledge on there as we go through the project. And we've already got that. If you have a look at the Slug Circle, you'll see some of the interesting discussions that Sky pointed out earlier. Then submit your data. It's really, really important that you do submit your data both through the Yen and any other data that you need to do. I think most of it actually comes through the Yen. So if you haven't done it, then we will be nudging you and prodding you to do so. And just to say that you should have received your first payment, and then the second payment is due by the 30th of September. So look, thank you very much, everybody, for attending the event. Or if you're watching it back, there are Pulse Pioneer points available, by the way, for those people who are watching this on playback. one thing I was going to say, I completely forgot to do it, is we're putting in secret words into these webinars so that those people who are watching it on record, if they don't give us the secret word, then they don't get the points. So the secret word for this particular webinar is, wait for it, Pulse Pep. There we go. So if you've managed to get this far and you're watching the recording, then remember that, Pulse Pep. We probably should have said something at the beginning, actually, Sky, about this. Anyway, that's I'm sorry to run over for those people who have stayed with us. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions, please get in touch with myself or Sky or Laura, or with if it's to do with the yen, then please get in touch with Tom. To do with Pulse Pep, get in touch with Marcus. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.